Hi, my name is Elena Tamayo. I am building engineer and build tech specialist at Modelical. I'm part of the Modelical's BIM office, where I develop the BIM quality controls for residential and non-residential projects. And I'm going to speak about quality control and how to monitor and control our models. We know BIM is an indispensable tool for execute successful construction projects. Building 3D models is not a mystery now, but we also have to learn how to properly manage its information. We need accurate data to analyze risks. So first thing we must ask ourselves is, are we adequately checking the quality of our deliverables? In the face of the tight deadlines and unforeseen challenges, it becomes essential to possess a well-defined guideline to monitor and control our work. Regardless of the use case or phase of the project, the essence of quality checking remains the same. We just need to adjust the degree of detail of the control accordingly. Before we start to work, we must analyze the requirements and needs of the clients or projects in order to develop the right strategy to follow up. When we start a project, we face a lot of challenges as QTO control, how to ensure that construction quantities obtained from the project are accurate. Project quantities must be controlled from the beginning to meet the client's needs and standards and allow cost estimation as well. Ensure design quality, how we achieve quality projects in line with business standards, checking the projects achieved with the corporate white paper, urban regulations, and quality standards. Budget optimization, how to control the impact of the design changes against the project budget. This is the main concern of the customers. Project changes affect to the business profitability. Take decisions based on reliable metrics. How we can make use of this information. Many projects generates a lot of information, but that should be used for making decisions. Better communication. How do we obtain useful digital representation according to phase and needs? Communicate is not only the design phase, but also we have to communicate on site and with the clients. To respond to all these challenges, we have to analyze our project. As any quality cycle, we have phases of analysis, implementation, evaluation, and actions. In this case, we divide the analysis in two phases: scope, what kind of information we want to obtain, and phase, in which stage of the project we are. As you see, both analyze, but we have to remember both steps, okay? We first want to know the uses and goals we want to achieve, and then adapting to the project phase. It can be slightly different depending on the phase we are. Next step, as we have all information, we have to check. That is to say, implement our plan. In this phase, we gather the data and the result of our reviews. This phase is really important, but as important as knowing the performance is communicating it. How we can clearly report this performance? We have to communicate to the team, the client, or even for ourselves, so anyone knows the amendments to improve the quality of our project. In the last stage, we have to learn. We gather a lot of useful information so we can use it for other projects. We have to add any new lessons to our guidelines. This will improve our check-ins and, as a result, the quality of our projects. So let's start with our guide from the beginning. Scope. We need to understand the requirements of the project. Will it use for area control, design, or quantities? Each use case has a checking method that can be customized for different projects. We have to read and analyze all the documents like a contract, employee requirements, execution plan, and related information. Inside all these documents, we will find our goals and the way to accomplish. This is what to look for in our check-ins. We have to sort all the information. The best way to do this is a checklist. It's concise and help us to organize the work. This is going to be our guide. we have to classify the requirements with the BIM general goals: BIM management, BIM requirements, model quality, 3D coordination, measurement, schedule. But we can have more goals depending on the project: structural or MEP calculations, environmental analysis, renders, whatever. These goals will have, of course, several checks. For example, model quality. Uh, we know models are not just 3D. Of course, we check the level of development and the geometry is well defined, but we can do more. Will we have a minimum required elements? And I'm not talking about just categories. For example, we need to know if every bath has a specific number and model of lights. We used to check this with Solibri. This kind of checks are important because the measurements are going to be more accurate, and we will have less surprises with overcost and delays in orders. Another example, at the first stages of a project, it is very important to adapt the design to the mandatory urban regulations. We check all the mandatory regulations with Solibri. So here you can see the list of checks we have in a template. We just adjust the distances and areas to local regulations and review the results. You can say, for example, we check the wheelchair turning space. We already have this check in the template. Normally the diameter is 1.50 meters, but we have if we have different regulations to apply in other projects, we can just modify this. So we know now the scope of the BIM project. Let's analyze the phase. I think it's really easy to understand if we compare with the level of development. We don't have the same goals depending on the stage of the project. If we are during the basic stage, our concern could be the design of the architecture, if the space meet the urban regulations, if the cost estimate is in line with the forecast. Then, if this initial analysis meets the requirements, we will move to the next phase. So if we go back to our checklist, we will have to update the check-in to each phase depending on three things: the geometry, the information, and the goals we have. As we said, the goals will change. If we are at the end of the construction stage, the review of the urban regulation will lose importance. And also, if we are in the initial phase, we don't know yet the technical details of the window, so it is not necessary to check this information in the model. And last, the changes in the geometry. We can see here part of the checklist, point 4, 3D coordination. We have to analyze the elements during all the stages. We probably design, for example, a precast structure, but we don't have the detail of the plates of connection with the slab. So we can have all the pipes perfectly coordinated during the early phases, but the development of these details can change this. We can see in the picture that first there were no elements of connection, but then when the contractor of the eaves developed the details, the pipes needed to be coordinated with this new information. Another example of adjustment through phases are the measurements. One of the most valuable checks we do is the verification of the quantity takeoff. You can see in the picture the difference of the partitions of a project. At the first stages, we have generic walls, so the measures are going to be approximate, and we will measure the complete partition. But when we check this during the execution phase, we will get a lot of definition of the material and also the adjust areas for each. This is going to be easier at first, as we just check the general category. We measure all the partitions and send the result to the client to check if the budget is in control. At the last stage, we have to compare the measures from the model with the budget. We want to verify if the measures are extracted from the models. We check if the percentage of the variation is acceptable, but we compare all the different parts of the partitions. So communication. Well, we know communication is one of the most important aspects to succeed in our projects, isn't it? But so far, after we have a well-defined checklist for all the stages ready and we follow all the points to review the models and other information, what do we do with all the data we gather? We can send the modelers the issues, maybe through ACC, BIM Collab. They can check all the problems, detect it, and make the necessary amendments. But we can also communicate or keep it for ourselves the global performance of the project. This will let us know if we are on the right path to reach our goals and requirements. You can see here an example of one of the reports we send to our clients to evaluate the performance of the projects. So if we use this information properly, we can learn and improve our performance during the next stage or maybe in other projects. As you see, we use this information we get from the reports to evaluate the performance. Also, another information. And we can check during all the phases. We can analyze the performance and the trends of the KPIs weekly or maybe at the end of a milestone. For example, we can see if the models are delivered on date or how many active issues we have for each phase. So if we analyze it correctly, we can adjust our targets. If we understand where the flows are, we can reinforce the work in these areas. We review some good practices to control the quality of our project, but the best practice is to be open to learn and apply all this knowledge for the next projects. The objective of having a well-defined checklist and templates is to be able to carry out systematic controls. If we can follow a guide, we will do the checks easier and also faster. To have a good guide, we need to learn from the projects before. So any problem we find must be added to our checking. If, for example, during construction phase, the fire dampers are too close to the ceiling slab and it couldn't be sealed, this will be a problem that probably affects the planification and also have a cost. So we have to add a specific check to avoid the problem in the future. And for the end, start again. As any quality control, this is a cycle. So we have to start this process again in the next project. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, let me know.